Hello, 702. Welcome to Tuesdays with Nicole. SJ couldn't make it this time, so you're just going to be hearing from me, but I have some notes about some of the things we've talked about. So the M5 Imagine, that's really what we're kind of hitting on. For each of your groups, you would have comments on the side, and you should have a block of blue comments that I added that talk about what you need to do next in M6. This video is going to kind of hit on some of the things that are in there that kind of were cross groups or that I want to highlight and point out. Okay, first, you guys did an amazing job. I know that this is a lot of work. You have 3 weeks, but that 3 weeks is really busy with the reading, the organizing, the meeting. Some of you did an amazing job of the collaborative co-writing, where you had kind of this polyvocal tone, but it was so harmonious to some vision. Now, that's really hard to get because in a lot of group assignments, what you get is you get kind of this multivocal tone that pulls in some different directions. Some strategies for if you feel like you're being pulled in different directions with a group is to use asynchronous platforms to communicate kind of as you go. You should do it pre-meeting and maybe even post-meeting as you're doing things, and ask other people, have one of them partner to comment and cross-check what you're doing together when you're writing. This, of course, takes a little time, and most of you will probably be doing this on the weekend of the last week when you're writing together. But you can do chunks of it as you go forward. So your third week, you really want to focus on getting the end M6 Imagine process, whether it's synchronous or asynchronous. Both of those can work for the group. You just want to make sure that you're cognizant of who is supposed to be doing what and who should be giving feedback or smoothing things out. All right, so that's the first thing to talk about is how do we get our multivocal tone to be really harmonious? And the answer to that is to try some asynchronous platforms, because I know you can't meet anymore, actually. All right, the second point that I want to make is everybody did each group really did a great job with the literature. I am blown away by your look into the literature, the way that you explained it, and the annotation. It was really, really good. The next thing we have to see, and many of you did this, and some of you could do it a little bit better, is to take that literature and it needs to really shine in your intervention design, and it really needs to shine in the RQs. So every single group can really work on their research questions in M6. That's really, for many of you, the next step. That's the pinnacle of what you want to do. Research questions are super hard to write, and it's because we have this idea that we ask the questions first and then go and do everything else. Research questions are actually the pinnacle. So if we think about the pop, the context, your position, the research questions, the theories that you're choosing, and the intervention that you do, you have all these components, and it's not two-dimensional. It's almost four-dimensional, but we'll stick with 3. It's like sculpting. You can't just do one side and ignore the other. You do one side and something happens to the other, and then you have to kind of keep turning and revising. Research questions are the ones that will kind of get smushed if you don't go back and revise. So my advice to you for research questions is to define your pop, get a good idea about what you kind of want to do with your intervention, look into the literature, and then write some preliminary research questions. Then look into the literature some more, completely devise your intervention, and relook at your pop and make sure it's still cohesive with everything you've done, and then revise the final research questions. One last pass at those research questions after you've read your own writing, you'll see what language and concepts need to be put into that to help you develop the knowledges or practices or understandings that you need for the pop that you say is for the vision. All right. The next thing I want to talk about is a few of you only went exploratory. So you need to do an intervention. This is practice for your proposal, for the phase that you would do in your dissertation, which has to have an action. Now that can be interpreted broadly, but it can't be exploratory questions of measuring something that already exists. You got to do something. So make sure that, and when you add the intervention, what you do is you have a parameter of design that is now new, that is different than what you've been doing in exploratory. It kind of tacks down a piece that you have to make cohesive now with all these other pieces, kind of like in that sculpture I was talking about. If you don't have it, you don't get to practice with it as much. So practice here before you have the stakes of having to do it next semester with your LSC and in your other classes. This is the skill that we're really looking at, is getting you ready, practicing some of those skills that you're really going to refine next semester. Okay. Some of the interventions were beautifully designed, and in those interventions, I did mention some ways to expand them, whether they were in the scope or out of the scope. Sometimes when I'm giving you feedback, I'll give you feedback for the future when you do a proposal, and I'll give you feedback for the assignment, and I try to make it very clear which one I'm giving it to, because the assignment has certain things we want you to do, which is this cohesiveness of the design between those elements we talked about. And then in the proposal, when you actually do that next semester and the semester after, when you're refining that, you'll see how much deeper and how much more work it actually is that we wouldn't ever expect on this assignment. All right, so the literature was great for everybody. You did a bang up job on the literature. Make sure that your RQs are cohesive with all the rest of your design. Make sure you design an intervention to practice that skill, to have that in there before you actually have to do it on your own next semester for the real stakes. Okay, so the last piece of thing I want to offer here is I would love to meet with your COPs when they're naturally meeting. I don't want any sort of extra scheduling for you. So if you would send me a few times that your COPs are meeting, I would be happy to come and talk about your feedback, help you move through this case, and answer any questions that will help you get ready for M7, which is all individual and all about your own POP. That's what we're aiming for. All right, thank you so much for your hard work. And I really do see the effort and the conversations and everything that you're doing in it. All of our feedback is meant to push you and prepare you the best we can, because we hope that we can help you design forward towards your dissertation. It's always hard to find the stop button. All right, thank you guys.